I was 6 years old when my dad, he was working as a prison guard for over a year by now. My father was put into a new block where there were some serious criminals being held, pretty much the step before going into the isolation block. A man called Jordan was put into this block for relocation due to the trouble he would stir up. This man was actually 16 and he was charged for being involved in a serious sexist cult. I won't go into much detail, but needless to say, this organization was where women and girls, they were viewed as property for men and whatever they desired. For over a week, this man would watch my dad during his shift intensely, always sitting at the bars watching him for endless hours. Now, my dad is a friendly guy and he doesn't like to discriminate or start up trouble, which also meant that he would be pushed around by other guards. Unfortunately, prison guards, they're sometimes worse than the inmates. So, my father, he kept the fact that he was being constantly watched to himself. They're already in prison, so what's the worst that could happen, right? That was dead wrong. After 2 weeks of this nonsense going on, the man finally gestured for my dad's attention. Having bars between them, my father complied and walked over to his cell. Jordan pulled out an envelope full of pictures of me getting off of a school bus on my street. Horrified, my father flipped through 68 pictures of me on a daily routine coming to and from school. Jordan demanded that he would get special treatment, or, and I quote, have someone collect what is rightfully mine. Of course, my dad panicked and he reported the man. The man was moved to the isolation section, and due to the intensity of the cult, my family was relocated to Idaho, and my father, he was placed in the military police until he was called into active duty a few years later, around the time I turned 10. Mind you, I had no idea what had happened, and my dad, he was being shipped to Iraq within 2 weeks. We were getting our family pictures taken at a local park for keepsake, in case my dad would not have been able to make it back. I know, it was a pretty sad day. After having to sit still for what seemed like hours, we were all able to go through out of the park and play. Now, at this time, all 9 of us, yeah, we had a big family. My sister, Heidi, my closest and only best friend at the time, pulled on my shirt and yanked me into the crawl tube between the playsets and whispered while peering through the softball-sized holes in the tube.
"You see that guy? He's been following us since we got out of the bathroom."
My sister is a year older than me and was a lot more aware of our surroundings than I was. And sure enough, a man standing at 5'8", well-built and with Hispanic heritage, was just standing there. Thank goodness, 10 minutes later, we left to go home. Weeks had gone by, and I began to see this man all over the place. Always, at least a street away from me, continuously at a distance where only I could have noticed him. Every time I tried to direct my teachers or peers in his direction, he would just disappear. Being so young, I just figured I was going crazy or something, when my sister finally saw him on that Friday as we got off the bus. "There's that guy," she said, not so quiet this time, which made him just intensely stare at us until we went inside my house. This went on for about a year, and the only witness to his existence was my sister. I had drawn it to my parents' attention, but they would never catch him in time. On my 13th birthday, I received a letter in my homeroom class after lunch. Since it was my birthday, and I assumed it was just from one of my friends or classmates, I didn't think too much about it. Inside was a beautiful put-together pink card with pop-up flowers and monarch butterflies on the front. I admired it, and I opened it expecting a cute rhyme or some flattering letter. I was dead wrong.
"Hello. I know you've been seeing me. If you tell anyone about me, you'll disappear. I would not like to do this since you are not ready yet. You don't know it yet, but you belong to me, promised to me by Allah. You were chosen to be a part of something special."
My heart skipped a beat, maybe 2. I was frozen in fear. I couldn't tell if this was real or some kind of sick joke. I showed my sister, and even to this day, I still have that card, but I didn't see him again for another 3 years. Of course, by this time, I thought he was gone, and I had long forgotten all about him, until I was ditching with a couple of friends from school and my sister, naturally. It was my 16th birthday on a hot day of August. We all decided to go to the local skate park in our small town. At this time, I had moved again to Arizona after my dad survived going to Iraq twice. There wasn't much to do except to try and learn a few tricks with the board and goof off. It was actually pretty nice, and I was rather enjoying my day until my phone received a picture message. I was trying to master a kickflip at the time, so Heidi, whom I allowed access to everything I owned, opened the message. She didn't say anything or cause a scene, but quietly jumped into the concrete bowl and shoved the screen in my face. I was horrified to see the very same man from my childhood taking a selfie with me and all who I was with clearly in the background. In the picture, I was leaning over the drinking fountain, accidentally shooting water all over my face, so it wasn't a great picture of me. But the worst part was he was so close to me, and I didn't even see him, literally at an arm's length. After seeing this, I looked for him everywhere. My friends thought I was crazy, but I didn't care. I looked everywhere I could think of, and even had gone into the men's room expecting to raise hell and demand answers from him. I was a pretty straightforward teen at the time, so I wasn't really afraid of too much. I should have been though. The message came from a 4-digit number, so my phone wouldn't allow me to reply. Heidi, at this point, she had calmed me down. School was getting out and we had started heading back to school to catch the bus home. I was looking over my shoulder the whole time. I was giving my friends a round of hugs and kisses on the cheeks, and I sat down at the end of the bus with my sister. And then I saw him. He was standing on the other end of the parking lot. He wanted me to see him, I think. He was holding something in his hand, but I couldn't make it out. I didn't even have to get my sister's attention. She saw him as quick as I did. She threw down the window and started to cuss and shout at the guy, calling him a creep and to stay as far away as possible from us. He was amused. He didn't react angrily or anything. He just laughed and walked into the wooded area behind my school.
"Why the hell would you do that?"
I aggressively whispered as I yanked her down to sit.
"Because he's a creep and he needs to be put back in his place."
She didn't regret her decision until later. I locked eyes with the woods and could still see him halfway behind a tree, still staring at me. All of this was making me sick. I didn't really know what to do. He had my number, knew my school, and possibly he knew where I lived, and if he didn't know, he would know soon. On the way home, I was working up the courage to tell my parents when we got to the door, and there was an envelope placed on the porch. Inside was a pink flowered pop-up cover with monarch butterflies. I already knew who it was from.
You have grown and exceeded all of my expectations. The harvest has begun. Tonight, I and others will reap from the fields of riches, claiming our prizes from Allah.
I had no idea what any of this meant, but I did know that I didn't like the way it looked.
"Don't tell Mum or Dad, they'll freak. I've got a couple of the guys coming over tonight, and we'll take him out if we see him."
Heidi was always taking care of things, even since she was little, and because I trusted her, I agreed and was anticipating the look on this guy's face when we finally caught the sucker. My birthday party, it was a blast, and I didn't see the guy, and I didn't get any strange messages either, until that evening. 7 of us were sleeping out on the trampoline. There were 4 boys, John, Jared, Alan, and Frank. The 3 girls were Heidi, myself, and Alyssa, who we only knew as Alan's girlfriend at the time. At the stroke of midnight, my phone flooded with long messages claiming his love for me. I didn't care until I saw the pictures. All of them were bird's eye views of me at my party, eating cake, beating the piñata, having our mud war. Every single one was shot in a different direction, as if he was some kind of jungle man hopping from one tree to the next, just taking pictures of me. I freaked out and started crying hysterically. The guys decided to stay up all night and stake out the place. There were 4 of them and only one of him, so I foolishly didn't think anything could happen. I had fallen asleep, but then this pain that was throbbing in my head, it caused me to wake up.